telling the tale of Episode 4, A New Hope, from a different perspective, we are here discussing Alexandra Bracken's A New Hope, The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy. At first glance, Alexandra Bracken's A New Hope, The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy is just a simple retelling of the first released episode in the Star Wars saga. But once you crack open the cover, you will notice that this book adds a lot to the films we know and love. This particular book dives into the story in 3 distinct sections. The Princess, which follows Princess Leia from the opening of the film through to the destruction of Alderaan. The Scoundrel, following Han Solo from the moment Obi-Wan cuts off Ponda Baba's arm to the moment he flies the Falcon out of the Death Star hangar. And The Farm Boy, following Luke from the moment he boards the Falcon after Obi-Wan's death through to the end of the film. Let's take a look at how this novel added to the film we all know and love. The story plays out much as we would expect, with all the same beats, just seen from Leia's perspective. The first significant add is, once Leia is taken out of the Tantive 4 onto Darth Vader's Star Destroyer, the Devastator. As she was being escorted to a cell, she had a moment where a sudden distraction allows her to grab her Stormtrooper escort's blaster and was able to stun them, allowing her to break away. She headed for a shuttle she saw in the hangar bay, but it was none other than Darth Vader who was there to stop her. Leia also learned first from Darth Vader that the Senate was disbanded. This was a blow to her that was not seen on screen. Leia, who had trained her whole life to serve in the Imperial Senate, was no longer a senator. We learned throughout this section of the book that Leia felt she had a lot to prove, being so young, but so willing to be a guiding force in the rebellion. While she showed a lot of outward strength, there was a conflict within her regarding her position. In the Mos Eisley Cantina, Han Solo was seen with Jenny from Mos Espa, a nice tie-in to a prequel location. The inclusion of this ladies' man side of Han is interesting, in that it makes his character growth throughout the film that much more significant. It also brings into canon the idea that he was meeting a lady while Chewbacca was talking to Obi-Wan. The book also sets up a stark contrast between Han's moral fluidity, while setting up Chewbacca as a family man, bringing his wife Mala into canon. We spend more time with Obi-Wan and Luke on the Falcon, giving us a better sense that the journey from Tatooine to Alderaan was not as quick as the film might have made it seem. We get to see the beginning of Luke's training, and that there was quite a bit that Obi-Wan was able to impart about the Force. Another interesting scene is that Han witnessed Obi-Wan whispering to R2, "It's good to fly with you again, my old friend." This may be the last piece in the R2-D2 puzzle that we need to sort out what happened between Episode 3 and 4. It seems C-3PO had quite a bit of memory modification over his years, including the order to wipe his memory at the end of Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. But R2 has been trusted with knowledge since Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. In the Clone Wars, we see Anakin confess that R2's never had a memory wipe. Perhaps this all leads to many, including Obi-Wan, carrying the secret that R2 knows well more than he lets on. And Obi-Wan has to pretend that he didn't know anything about R2 when Luke found him on Tatooine. The inclusion of this line, with the knowledge of R2 in the Clone Wars and Rebels, gives us enough to make sense of this situation, which has perplexed many of us over the years. In the Farm Boy section's opening chapter, we find that Luke and Leia had a protracted conversation about Obi-Wan's death, which helps Luke deal with it to a certain extent. At least enough for him to jump into action without being frozen by grief. Luke also reflects on his days flying his T-16 Skyhopper and clipping the wings, which mirrors scenes from the webcomic. So finally, to answer the question we all didn't know we had, how does Luke learn to fly an X-Wing so quickly, when he's never flown a starfighter before in his life? This novel shows us that Luke had a couple of training sessions with Wedge in a flight simulator, with a bit of help from Obi-Wan's voice encouraging him to use the Force. The scene with Luke and Biggs is also drawn out a bit in this novel, as they bring into canon Biggs' visit to Tosche Station that was removed from the film. This is not the first elements from the deleted scene that has been brought into canon, but this adaptation helps us to solidify it. while also giving us some background on Biggs that we haven't had before. Overall, this was a fun adaptation of the film, with a great narrative hook, taking each of the three main characters and telling the story from their perspective. We get a bit more into the minds of these characters, while adding a lot of value to how we watch the film. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe to keep up with all the insight and analysis found here at Star Wars: The Canon Explained. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Leave your comments and questions about this story or any element of the Star Wars canon below. Till next time, may the Force be with you.